Have you heard rich people in movies time and time again describe how they keep most of their money in a Swiss bank? Is this actually true in real life? And if so, what's all the hubbub about Switzerland? Well, it is true that Swiss banks are arguably the best banks to keep your money in, not just for the rich, but for everyone, if you're not investing it, of course. So, here's why Swiss banks are so highly sought after, starting with extreme privacy. Swiss banks have built up an indestructible reputation for privacy, as they simply will not reveal your identity for any reason except for illegal pursuits. Now, don't get too impressed, as this is not from the goodness of their heart or outstanding integral practices. After the Swiss banking law of 1934 was passed, it was made criminal for Swiss banks to even disclose the name of an account holder. But privacy alone wouldn't attract so many people to invest in Swiss banks, though it is a great feature. A lot of wealthy folks are intrigued by Swiss banks due to their very high interest rates. Well, actually not really. Swiss banks have some of the worst interest rates in the world. In fact, they occasionally charge negative interest rates, meaning that you have to pay the bank to keep your money there. So Swiss banks don't have good interest rates. But what they do have is a great return on investments, or ROIs. Wait, how can Swiss banks offer a great return on investment when they average about 0% interest? Well, the secret lies in their shockingly low inflation rate. Over the past 20 years, Switzerland has actually experienced 5 years with negative inflation or deflation. This means that their currency has become more valuable year after year. Now, prolonged periods of deflation are terrible for a country, as it indicates weak economic growth, but in the case of Switzerland, it's not too bad. In the 20-year period between 1999 and 2018, the average inflation rate in Switzerland was actually only 0.515% compared to the global average inflation rate of about 3%. In the same period, the world actually had an average inflation rate of 3.44%, but this does include the global financial crisis, so we'll give them the benefit of the doubt and give them an inflation rate of 3%. This means that every year, the Swiss currency gains about 2.5% in value compared to the average currency. This makes sense, as if you take a look at the USD to Swiss franc conversion rate, you'll see that in 2003, you can get 1.37 Swiss francs using a US dollar. But today, you can't even get a full Swiss franc using a US dollar. To really put this in perspective, using an ROI of 2.5%, which is the 3% global inflation rate minus a 0.5% inflation rate in Switzerland, in the last 20 years, by simply placing your money in a Swiss bank in the Swiss franc currency, you would have gained 63.9% in value. In just a little more than 8 years, your money would have doubled. Now, of course, that would have taken a total of 28.5 years, but you have to keep in mind that this is simply a savings account, not real estate or mutual funds or index funds. Despite this, what's so impressive is that this comes close to the ROI of real investments. Mutual funds, which are considered to be one of the safer investments, average about 7% after mutual fund manager fees. When you take out inflation, this comes down to 4%, which is quite comparable to a Swiss bank's ROI of 2.5%. Of course, wealthy people didn't become wealthy settling for 2.5% ROIs, and they shoot for at least 10%, whether that's real estate or high return mutual funds. However, this makes Swiss banks the perfect place to keep money between investments due to their unbeatable stability. Real estate may go through a housing bubble or a crash. The stock market may experience a bull market or bear market. They do end up averaging a much better return on investment over the long term, but the same cannot be said in the short term. As a result, oftentimes for periods of just a couple of months, it makes much more sense to put investment money into a Swiss bank rather than another sort of investment. Even during the worst of recessions, the Swiss currency has proven to hold strong. If you didn't look closely at the Switzerland inflation graph, you may have not even noticed a peak in the inflation rate during the 2008 global financial crisis. Switzerland, only experienced an inflation rate of 2.43% during the global financial crisis, which is still well under the global average inflation rate of 3%. Meanwhile, the global inflation rate peaked at 8.926% in 2008, meaning that on average, you would have had a 6.5% ROI by simply keeping your money in a Swiss bank rather than an average bank during that year. And this was during a time when the S&P 500 over halved in a single year and real estate prices plummeted. Again, those did recover and have ended up doing better than a 2.5% ROI. But this showcases the stability of Swiss banks even on the short term. In the end, Swiss banks don't actually offer anything special that sets them apart other than their great privacy policies. What actually attracts investment is the Swiss economy, which has proven to be one of the most, if not the most stable economy in the world with little to no inflation. This has made Swiss banks the perfect opportunity to preserve the value of one's money and retain purchasing power by avoiding inflation in their home country. And that is why rich people love to keep money which they have not already sunk into investments in Swiss banks. But the benefits don't just apply to rich people. You could and should definitely take advantage of their strong economy. Don't use them as an investment platform, but definitely explore the option of using Swiss banks as a place to keep your uninvested money, whether just a couple of grand or tens of thousands of dollars. Anyways, if you guys thought this video explained the appeal of Swiss banks well, then make sure to drop a like and consider subscribing if you'd like to see more questions just like this one logically answered. But until then, I'm Hari and I'll see you guys on the next one.